Right now on the Health Watch, when people think of addiction, they usually think of drugs and alcohol. But it turns out you can also be addicted to your cell phone, and it can have serious effects. Dr. Romy is here with what you need to know about detoxing from these babies. Hold on. Here's what we're going to do.
What are we going to put them down?
Well, you know what? We need to put them farther away.
Painful. Oh,
farther away than that.
We're not going to touch the phones.
In the midst of the extraordinarily deadly opioid and opiate crisis, there was another epidemic emerging, the so-called behavioral addictions. Gambling is the classic example of these, and gambling problems of course predate our current era by many millennia. But more recent technological developments, along with advances in behavioral psychology, have helped both gambling and other brands of this addiction to flourish, from social media to food, video games, and pornography. While there continues to be considerable debate over what constitutes a behavioral addiction, researchers have suggested that as many as 41% of Americans suffer from one behavioral addiction or another over the course of a normal year. Young people find themselves locked to their video game consoles as they fail out of school, or chained to social media platforms that make them miserable and destroy their self-esteem. Older people gamble away their retirement savings on digital slot machines or through online gambling that is easily available through their smartphones. And people become hooked on the pornography that is free and always just a click away. Even before the advent of the internet, the gambling industry had begun to recognize the great potential of digitized vice. Digital machines, especially slot machines, make it easier to keep customers playing. Gambling impresarios learn that the flashing lights and catchy repetitive music that these devices deliver are as addictive as the potential monetary payout, much in the way that drug users get hooked as much by the environment in which they use as by the substances themselves. Research advances in behavioral psychology helped to establish the most addictive kinds of feedback, and digitized games helped casinos keep track of how often customers were winning and losing so that the feedback patterns could always be optimized to maximize a given gambler's time on the machines. Meanwhile, video game developers were harnessing similar advances in behavioral psychology to develop games that produced enormous satisfaction for users. They learned to perfectly calibrate users' rates of progress and improvement to keep them hooked. As opposed to an old-fashioned board game, video games, like digital slot machines in a casino, allow for the progress of users to be tracked and the difficulty of the tasks to be adjusted to maximize satisfaction and engagement. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. Then the advent of the internet added a critical factor to the mix: accessibility.
Hey there, it's us again. This is my brother Peter, Mom and Dad, and I'm Dasha. Today we're going to be showing our friends Andrew and Lisa the basics of the internet, and we thought you might want to come along.
It'll be cool.
Now here's a little background. When we installed internet access on our computer, I got the whole family involved.
It's true. Everybody had their own tasks to do.
It was a lot of work, but it was really worth it.
Now that I've gotten on the internet, I'd rather be on my computer than doing just about anything.
It's really cool.
The internet gave us a whole world of exciting new possibilities. So I guess this is a story of how it changed our lives. Maybe it will yours too, with the Kid's Guide to the Internet.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
Where one previously had to venture to Las Vegas to gamble or to a shady theater to view pornography, now these vices were suddenly available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Then, in 2007, with the release of the first iPhone, that accessibility reached new heights. Now you did not even have to be at home in front of a computer. You could carry these vices anywhere. At the same time, internet entrepreneurs began taking advantage of one of the most fundamental of human drives, the need for social interaction. Social media sites, from Facebook to Twitter and YouTube, provided the irresistible opportunity for people all over the world not only to connect, but to carefully curate a version of themselves for the whole world to see. Everyone now had a chance at least mini-celebrity status. Then, in 2010, Facebook introduced the like button, which, like the randomized winnings that hooked slot machine players, provided potentially immediate but always unpredictable feedback for social media users. Now, one of the fundamental elements that made gambling so very addictive was tied to the deeply personal images and updates that Facebook users worldwide posted to their feeds. The winning and losing here is not only of a more fundamental emotional nature than in a casino, but it is always free to engage, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Social interaction has also become a major addictive force in the world of video games that have moved online, while entertainment platforms like YouTube have adopted not only the like button, but have developed business models that look a lot like those of a Las Vegas casino. Their goal became to keep the users watching for as long as possible, and it's been working. On any given day, 1 billion hours of YouTube are watched by people worldwide. That's the equivalent of 115,000 years' time, every single day. This has produced its own series of consequences. YouTube and other similar platforms have found that users are more likely to keep watching if they are fed content that reinforces their existing interests. When applied to the world of politics, this has helped to create information bubbles and political polarization. And that brings us back to where we started, with an attack on the US Capitol by a crowd of people heavily influenced by internet conspiracy theories and YouTube videos. We are only just beginning to understand the scope and long-term consequences of this latest epidemic. Of course, most gamblers or users of social media or video games don't become hopeless addicts, but a significant percentage of them do, and there are a lot of profits to be made from that excess. Indeed, this has been a key element driving all of our stories. Out of all this vice and misery, many people thrive. There are the billionaires, the tech giants, gambling impresarios, and top drug traffickers. But there are also lots of ordinary people whose livelihoods rely on the misery of that small minority of addicts. Whether it's the employees of the system of mass incarceration, or the police forces that draw their funding from punitive drug policies, or the hundreds of thousands of peasants whose livelihoods depend on drug production in Latin America, or the builders and bankers who benefit from trafficking profits, the entrepreneurs who use drug money to fund other ventures, or the drug treatment industry that these days is absolutely booming. All of this makes us somewhat skeptical that even historical thinking can save us, because while the skills of historical thinking may help us to discern the forces that are shaping our present, the many interests, their global scope, and the technology that facilitates them are simply too vast, fast-moving, and diverse to really control. It is, frankly, a little depressing. But who knows? If there's one thing history teaches us, it's that you can't be sure of what tomorrow will bring.